capita, and the Bet Zahor and Bethlehem are barred from drilling for more water under their own land. I could go on, Hassan, but the one thing I hope I can do as I start to release some of these videos and talk about this is put aside your ideology. Look at the facts on the ground. It is apartheid. It is inhumane. It is cruel. If you support Israel, it is humiliating what is happening in the occupied West Bank. And you have a police force and the IDF that is aligned by extremist settlers in the same way in Jim Crow during the segregationist South, police were often aligned with the segregationists. This is not ideological. These are the facts, and any American who goes there will see this with their own eyes.
Yeah, this is so your recognition of the Israeli apartheid is unfortunately not a commonly shared experience by the rest of the U.S. Congress. What is your message to your allies, both in the Democratic side, but even some of the other Congress members on the Republican side? What will it take for them to come to terms with the reality that every single humanitarian rights organization has recognized at this point that Israel is an apartheid state, that it maintains a very violent occupation over the lives of Palestinians that you now got a glimpse of in your brief experience in the West Bank?
I think they just need to go there. They need to go spend 2 days there. They need to go there, or they need to talk to Palestinian Americans who are there. You know, I talk to Palestinian Americans, millionaires, people who have big businesses. They go there, they have mansions in their house, and they tell me how, one of them told me how they went through a checkpoint and the guard started beating him and took it $9,300 from him because he said, "Do you speak Hebrew?" And the Palestinian American, who's a millionaire, said, "No, I don't speak Hebrew because I've been away from the place for 30 years." And they said, "No, you're lying. We're going to beat you." I mean, they should talk to either some of the Palestinian Americans here who have go back to occupied West Bank, or they could spend 2 days there. And they need to spend 2 days there with a Palestinian-led, Palestinian-guided tour. You know, this is what the Israeli ambassador was trying to undermine. He said, well, Khanna told us he was going. I did that because I wanted to check the boxes, but he did not come to Israel. I've been to Israel 3 times, on Israel inside the Green Line. I've been there 3 times before. But they want to make sure that any of the American politicians who go, either they have AIPAC-led trips or they have Israeli government-led trips, and they get to meet people in Israel, and they'll go to Ramallah, they'll meet President Abbas, they'll meet some of the business leaders, but they're not going into the villages and the towns and seeing apartheid and talking to ordinary Palestinians. It's being kept from them. And what we need is politicians to actually go and see the reality. And I guarantee you, if they do that, this will not even be a debate in America.
You talked about the racist element of the maintenance of apartheid from your perspective as a brown man. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? I mean, you're a brown man in America. It's not like America has been all too kind to brown folk. You're from Pennsylvania, and you're saying that this was a different kind, that I believe you said something along the lines of you had never recognized your skin color as much as you did when you were traveling through the West Bank.
I've never felt my race as much as I did in the 3 days I was in the West Bank. Never. You know, when I grew up in Pennsylvania in Bucks County, it was a middle class upbringing. Went to public school, but I had a lot of people who believed in me. I couldn't hit for anything. They still played me on little league teams. I still traded baseball cards. We all rooted for the Phillies. I had a pretty decent childhood, and yeah, sometimes someone would say go back to India, but that was the exception. That was not the norm. The only time I was acutely aware of race in America, most acutely, was after 9/11, when I don't know if you had this experience, after every airport, I would get called up for advanced screening because I was brown going through airports, and it was post 9/11. But in the West Bank, I felt my race acutely every moment. At the checkpoints when we were traveling, and my aide was at one point, the group was white, and one of my friends was white, and I was brown. And I could tell that the security, when they came on the bus, they were concerned most about me. Who is this brown guy? At one place, when we were on the Israeli occupied side of Hebron, the three or four of us, an Israeli, two white Americans, and me. The guard comes. He doesn't care about them. He comes and says, "Who is this guy? Is he the son of Isaac or the son of Ishmael? Meaning, am I a Muslim or a Christian?" And I said, "Hindu, Hindu." And the guy, it was beyond his comprehension. He said, "What is that?" But I was so made aware of being brown. I was brown first, an American second, a congressperson third, but from the lens of people seeing me there, I was just a brown person. It is not just apartheid, it is a racial apartheid that is taking place there.
Yeah, and it's backed by religious fundamentalists, and I do fear that there is an analog here in the United States of America, a similar growth of a movement that is brewing that is a real, genuine threat to normal American existence. And I was wondering if you see those similarities as well. I know you mentioned the historic Jim Crow, a similar apartheid structure that existed in the United States of America, but I do feel like in order for Americans to better comprehend the conditions, because we know America best, do you see a similarity in the growth of ethno-nationalism, Christian nationalism in the United States of America, and a coalition of these similar forces? Did you feel as though this was supremacist values in action, ethno-religious supremacist values in action in their treatment of you, and also their ongoing treatment of the Palestinians as well?
It's 10 times worse than anything in the United States of America. But the one place, let me say to people here who maybe get some perspective, think about ICE and think about ICE racially profiling people who are brown, you know, the Kavanaugh stops where they can just stop people who are brown or in low wage jobs, and think about how they're harassing them and how they're detaining them and in some cases killing them and killing American citizens who get in the way. And think of basically the IDF in the West Bank as 10 times worse and rogue as what you imagine ICE to be, as a ICE that has absolutely no constraints, it can act with total impunity. And so you see the worst form of it in the West Bank. Of course, it should make us even more concerned about organizations like ICE and the desire that they have to purge the country of people who are brown and to tackle immigration. But it needs to be tackled here. But it's 10 times worse in the West Bank.
Yeah. Do you, as an American citizen and as an American congressperson, as an American taxpayer, do you feel a sense of moral culpability as well with the ongoing occupation? Because once again, another aspect of this conversation that is not like academic, not theoretical, but very real is the illegality of this occupation, and yet no one talks about it. Do you feel like that we have an obligation to try to recalculate our relationship with the nation state of Israel? And what do you suggest that we can do as regular American citizens, and what can Congress do as well?
Yes, I do feel a moral complicity and some moral guilt. One of the reasons I want to share my own evolution is that we need that kind of evolution in America. I voted for a lot of the aid before October 7th. I voted for those bills. And the irony that they're taking the money I voted for to detain me, I mean, to detain Americans there. It's almost a terrible twist of fate, sort of teaching a lesson of justice. But, I was not, I've had deep roots in my grandfather and standing up for independence in India and fighting colonialism. And I worked against the war to stop the war in Yemen. And I ran against the first Iraq war. And I've been active in trying to stop the war in Iran. But I was not initially, before October 7th, an activist on the Palestinian issue. But I just saw on my phone the brutal killing of children in Gaza. And I said it's a genocide. And I voted against, for the first time, the aid with Biden, the supplemental bill. They said my political career was over when I voted with 37 other Democrats against that aid. I questioned my own president, as you know, because we met in Chicago, and I was against the Biden then and what the Biden administration was doing, and that not having a Palestinian speak. But I have become more and more convinced of the moral stakes of this issue. And at this point, Israel is acting in a rogue way with an apartheid state in the West Bank and is committed genocide in Gaza. We need to end all aid. It's not just academic. We have a vote on the Massey Amendment coming up next week. I mean, are they really going to vote for aid after Israel's foreign government just detained an American congressman and 4 American citizens, and they're the ambassador is making excuses, the prime minister is making excuses? You're going to give aid to this country? We need to stop giving military sales to Israel that is using these sales to commit genocide, and we need to be very clear about the terms because words matter. Apartheid and genocide, they matter. And I really believe that there's a reckoning that's coming because young people, both Democrats and Republicans, get this.
Yeah. As far as a member of Congress and just Americans broadly, we do have a lot of power and a lot of influence over the country of Israel. Now, a lot of people here in the United States sometimes get that relationship wrong. And part of that is because of the prominence of pro-Israel voices in American Congress. But there's this attitude that, Israel controls the United States of America. It's actually the exact opposite, where America has tremendous control over the nation state of Israel. Now, of course, with your recent experience in Israel and the lack of support that you've seen, or even the impunity that you have heard from Israeli officials, you might have a different perspective on this as well. But the reason why I keep bringing this up is because there are mechanisms in play of ensuring that Israel actually is held accountable. So I want to ask you about some of those mechanisms in play. I think you brought up the fact that we shouldn't be giving aid to Israel as long as Israel is obviously in violation of international law, and that's one of them. Obviously, like forcing Congress to abide by existing laws like the Leahy Law is a good start, but I want to hear your perspective on additional financial sanctions. Even someone like Rahm Emanuel, who has long been a supporter of Israel, whose father actually was a part of the early Zionist militias himself, came out while you were in the West Bank. He was at Tel Aviv University and he delivered a speech. And in this speech, he talked about comprehensive sanctions on Israeli banks. And he even went as far as to say, every single Israeli bank has a branch in the West Bank, in occupied territory that Israel illegally occupies. I don't know if he used those terms, obviously, but he said that those sanctions would actually reach every single Israeli bank if we were able to implement them. Are you in favor of something of the sort? Are you willing to go even further than that as far as sanctioning the state of Israel, an arms embargo? These are the questions that I have from my community, certainly.
Yeah, I think that's just a start. Of course, we should be sanctioning the banks and the construction and the financing of construction and illegal settlements in the West Bank. But we should be demanding not only that, we should be demanding the prosecution of Ynon Levy and the extremist settlers. We should be demanding the demolition of the outposts and the illegal settlements, even illegal under Israeli law, let alone illegal under international law. We should be sanctioning Ben Gvir and Smotrich and government officials that are engaged in perpetrating apartheid. And so I would go beyond just the banks and deal with the construction of these settlements, deal with the government officials who are involved, demand the extremist settlers be prosecuted, and demand the removal of these outposts and settlements, which is not just theoretical. That would improve daily life for Palestinians today if we could get rid of the outposts and the settlers and the illegal settlements while we work towards Palestinian self-determination. That would make a difference today if we did that, and the president should do that. I appreciated Ram's point, but I don't get this 23 nation stuff. I mean, like we can tell Israel what to what to do. We don't have to some kumbaya 23 nations. Like, stop the settlements, stop the apartheid, recognize Palestinian state. And I think part of it is because it's like an ivory tower. Like, you trek to Tel Aviv, you give some speech. No, come on, meet the people on the ground. And I'm glad at least Ram has moved from now to what'll be the right pole of probably the Democratic Party. But we got to have people actually meet. I don't understand how you can lead this party if you've not been to the West Bank for an honest look at what's going on in terms of the human rights issues that are at stake. And then I would not provide military weapons that are being used to kill civilians. I think that's where drop the bombs and Senator Sanders' amendments are. And I have supported that. People have, I've said I don't think we should provide any aid to Israel, including the purchase of Iron Dome. And I came out for that more recently. But, I got into this back and forth with Mehdi Hassan, where at the time I was like, well, I'm not sure on that. And I said, Mehdi, we haven't even tried step one. Like, yeah, we can get to step 7 or 8, but people who are saying, oh, Israel's impervious to the United States, how would we know? We've never tried. How about we stop the aid? How about we start these sanctions? How about we stop some of these military sales? And then we'll see. And my guess is they'll very quickly comply. The reason the ambassador can go on with impunity on face of the nation, even as Americans are detained, and the prime minister can obfuscate, is because there has never been consequences so far.
Yeah, well, I think the reason why people are demanding an embargo, myself included, is because it is an enforcement action that would get Israel to comply far beyond simply offensive or defensive weapons, especially considering that now there is this new bill that is being discussed where there's supposed to be a merger of the Israeli military and the American one that would make this. That would make the issue of holding Israel accountable or stopping Israel's violence against civilians far more difficult. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on that as well. I know you've spoken about that extensively.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get to make sure my connection is strong.
Yeah.
I've led the effort in the Armed Services Committee to make sure that that we have a removal of Section 224. Section 224 requires basically the merging of the Israeli military with the American military. I mean, it would appoint a special coordinating person who would basically merge our militaries. Why is this the strategy? And this is where I think it's important to get people on record, because we could cut the aid, we could stop, as I'm saying, the military sales under the Leahy law. But if you're joint producing everything under Section 219 or 224, it doesn't really matter. They won. They have all the military at that point.
Yeah.
We don't have this for any NATO ally. So we need to stop the military sales killing civilians. We need to make sure that we aren't giving any aid. And we should not allow an end run around that, which was basically Netanyahu's strategy to sort of integrate our military. I mean, it's absurd on its face that we would integrate our military with anyone, but especially absurd that we would do it with a country that's committed genocide, and especially absurd that we would do it when the entire American public wants us to do less with Israel, not more. Only the United States Congress would dream up, well, let's do more.
Yeah, the reason why I bring that up is because Benjamin Netanyahu, since the 90s, has claimed over and over again that they could do without American military aid, right? But nowadays, it's become a more commonly shared opinion in the Israeli military and in the Israeli government that it's becoming perhaps too politically disadvantageous to continue giving money to Israel so they can purchase the weapons back. And that's the reason why I think a lot of people stress the importance of an embargo and also this merger of the Israeli military, because at that point, it won't even matter if America is directly paying the Israeli government to then purchase arms from the United States of America. A version of this already exists with like jet fuel, for example. This is like very insidious. And many people are not aware of this, but like the Pentagon has always supplied the the Israeli military with U.S. jet fuel, and that kind of stuff doesn't even get mentioned in the above board numbers that we're talking about. So a version of this merger already in some respects exists, and you mentioned the exceptional nature of the military partnership that we have with Israel. That also exists with the F-35 program. Israel is the only country that actually doesn't have an American key to their F-35s, simply put. It's a little reductive, but they get to use their own operating software, for example. No other country gets this level of control over our technology. So do you, where do you see this relationship going, especially given that it's a massive divergence between the American public, where every single day Israel is becoming more and more unpopular, whereas Congress seems resilient and resistant to that change, to abide by the needs of the masses?
Well, we need to see Israel first and foremost as an occupying power that has an apartheid state in the West Bank and Gaza, and that committed genocide, and that there needs to be dramatic uh, transformation and change for justice and peace in that area. And that means zeroing out the aid. That means no military integration. That means no military sales that can kill civilians. And that means more than that, leadership that's going to demand some of this outposts come down, settlements come down, that is going to work towards Palestinian recognition and a just peace. That to me is where not just Democrats are the primary voters, and I know you've been had a string of victories with Malat and Abdul, our friend, and looking very strong. And basically, the pattern is you go, you support them, the establishment attacks you, and then the candidate ends up winning. I mean, it's they should be so lucky to have you come out. But my point is that that's where the Democrats are, but also where a lot of the young Republicans are, and they understand that we really, it's a moral issue, a justice issue, but it's also an issue of America not getting dragged into overseas wars in the Middle East that are hurting our national security.
Yeah. So I want to get a little bit of clarity here, because you brought up the idea of being comfortable with sanctions, especially sanctions on any institution, financial or otherwise, that's touching the West Bank. But are you comfortable with targeted sanctions of that sort? I want to get full clarity on it. And also, are you comfortable with advancing a demand for an arms embargo, or is that too pie in the sky for you?
Well, I would say I'm comfortable with sanctions on government officials and sanctions on anyone, any of the financial institutions, and certainly sanctions which are involved in the occupation in the West Bank. And I would look at the construction of the finance, the government officials that are involved there. And of course, if there are people to be held criminally accountable beyond or sanctioned based on what happened in Gaza, that needs to happen once that goes through the ICJ and ICC. On the way I frame it, similar to Sanders and others, is no military sales under our Leahy law. And the arms embargo and candor would go further. It would that would mean, I suppose, as you would define it, that you would stop Israel even from getting defensive weapons, even not from us, but if they just want to get Iron Dome or things. That to me is probably too far. I mean, I'm all for defending and saving human life. So I have framed it the way Sanders or others have: no military sales in terms of things that could kill civilians, which is where.
But you would not be in favor of a similar ease of access to defensive weapons for the Palestinians, right? As far as if Palestinians were to get arms
I think a
from
Palestinian state. No, I mean, I think if a Palestinian state wanted to have Iron Dome, I don't think that's a problem.
Okay.
Why would that be a problem?
All right. Well, I hear this from other Democratic congresspersons as well, and it's always interesting to hear their perspective, because I'm fairly certain that we have long-standing sanctions on Iran specifically for delivering weapons illegally. we've decided is illegal to the Palestinian population, similar to the axis of resistance with Hezbollah. These are obviously not the Iron Dome because they don't have that technology, but these are weapons that are being used and still being used against Israeli soldiers in Israel's illegal and ongoing occupation of Lebanon. Weapons that were received by Iran.
I'm not for arming Hezbollah or arming Hamas. Or I don't think that that's going to get to peace. I would say that the United States should be working on the recognition of a Palestinian state to stop the aid to Israel, to stop the military sales to Israel that are being used to kill civilians, and use our leadership to get finally a Palestinian state that where Palestinians can live with equal rights and dignity. I don't think the way to that is for Iran to be arming Hamas or Hezbollah or armed resistance. I just I don't agree with that. And my grandfather.
No, that's why I was saying, like, wouldn't you see that it's a fair standard to apply evenly across the board? A similar sanctions package for countries that are also delivering arms sales to a country that, by your own admission, has participated in a genocide, and also a country that actually subjected you to the apartheid conditions in its detention.
Oh, but I would, I would restrict all aid, so zero out all aid, and I would restrict all military sales killing civilians. I guess the question is, do we? You would go further and say Israel shouldn't have Iron Dome or some of these weapons. I think that they genuinely could be shot at by Iranian missiles, and to me, a life is a life.
The way I see it is I see Palestinians as human beings. I see Israelis as human beings. I want a just and equitable outcome for every single person that's living in the region, and I see that as the only way to achieve that is because I don't see the Palestinian existence as a spoiler to this endeavor at all. I see Israel as an occupation to be the primary and only spoiler to a lasting and equitable peace. And therefore, I want the full spectrum of pressure to be deployed on the country that is responsible for a metric ton more of heinous war crimes. And that's precisely the reason why I'm in favor of more comprehensive, more of a comprehensive penalty to Israel, because I'm fully aware that none of those things are most likely going to happen, and that Israel is going to come to the recognition that they have to play ball. One of the things that I wanted to also ask you,
because I'm always a straight shooter. I think on the menu of all the penalties, I'm probably 7 or 8 out of the 10 we're on the same page, and you may go a few further. But my point is, so far we've only done one. And if you actually have an American Congress, an American Senate, an American president who actually start going up the ladder, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think you quickly will see a massive change in behavior, and that's what the base wants. And I think it's not just the policy. I think we need to be going and standing in solidarity with the Palestinian people and lifting up their stories and talking about their daily life and helping the American people understand what's going on there.
Yeah. One other question that I had for you before I let you go, and thank you so much for all the work that you've done. Thank you so much for going to the West Bank and seeing the experience of the Palestinians and the conditions that they're subjected to, once again, by a criminal occupation. This is an illegal occupation under international law. And speaking of sanctions, by the way, we've obviously deployed sanctions on the International Criminal Court and the International Court of Justice for even investigating some of these war crimes in the ongoing occupation.
Which is absurd.
Yeah, which is totally ridiculous. As a matter of fact, someone that you've endorsed, Abdul al-Sayed, has been quite critical of Haley Stevens, who also voted in favor of the sanctioning of, I believe, the ICC, sanctioning of the judges, and on top of that, voted against Rashida Tlaib, your colleague's bill to apply a similar standard to the War Powers Resolution to demand Israel pull out of Lebanon in its illegal occupation of currently Lebanese territory.
I was one of the original co-sponsors or sponsors of Rashida's resolution, which is not just protecting the lives of people in Lebanon, where you've had brutal bombing in Beirut and the surrounding areas, but it's also protecting American interests, because part of what is perpetuating this war and having Iran block the Strait of Hormuz, as you know, is Israel continues to bomb Lebanon. Even the Trump administration is so frustrated by it. And all Rashida's resolution was saying is, let's stop that any assistance to Israel in bombing Lebanon. And of course, I believe that we should not be sanctioning the ICC or the ICJ.
Yeah. One question I had for you was about some of the terminology that you used. Like, you were uncomfortable with the term apartheid in the past. You have obviously evolved on your position, and I really appreciate that you've gone through this journey and have been very open about it as well.
And also, even before my trip to the West Bank, I think I had said apartheid, but I would kind of hesitate.
Yeah,
I have no hesitation after going there to say it is an apartheid state. I mean, it is a Jim Crow state. I don't care about any of the politics. I mean, anyone going there, spend 2 days there, I guarantee you'll say the same thing. That's not ideal. Look, I believe it was genocide. You can debate the legality of that and have legal debates. There is no debate if you go to the West Bank on the facts of the ground of apartheid.
Yeah. But the reason why I was bringing that up is because, like, you've talked about the importance of using proper terminology. One of the questions that you have received that you have answered in the past is actually a silly question. It's does Israel have a right to exist? And now the new version of this has become, does Israel have a right to exist as a Jewish state? Since you've also faced the militant aspect of ethno-religious supremacy, do you still maintain the position that Israel has a right to exist as a ethno-religious Jewish state, as an ethno state, or has your calculation changed on that? Should any state exist as an ethno state, or do you have a different calculation now?
I have always maintained, and I guess here's how I would frame it. I've always been saying that Israel should be Jewish. The Jewish people should have the ability to have self-determination. It's fine to have a Jewish state, but it has to be under equal rights and non-occupation, with a Palestinian state and with equal human rights within the Green Line of Israel. There are a lot of religious states, right? I mean, England has the Church of England, Greece has the Orthodox Greek Church. There are, of course, Pakistan and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Jordan. The problem is there's a difference between having a state that has a constitution based on religion, which the Jewish people can have, and a state where she uses religion to oppress and subjugate and deny the rights of others. What is happening right now with Israel is obviously an occupation, an apartheid, and a genocide. So I don't support that. But my hope is that what could emerge is a state that recognizes equal rights and ends the occupation and has a Palestinian state. That said, look, I'm not rigid. Obviously, I've supported this framework for the Arab peace plan, and that could go forward. There are other possibilities people have floated, and I'm open to that. What I do know is that we need to start with improving life on the ground for Palestinians, and that means demanding the destruction of the outposts, the settlements, the prosecution of violent settlers, ending the aid, ending military sales, clearly calling it apartheid and genocide, and working towards peace.
Yeah. The reason why I brought that up specifically is because, again, it's vague, but it's also a loaded term for the most part, because, like, Israel as it currently exists is an ethno state. And even inside of the Green Line, there's obviously a double standard in the way, or to varying degrees, there are different forms of discrimination that the Palestinian citizens of Israel face, whether it be not getting the sufficient Iron Dome coverage for a Bedouin village, or even a Bedouin village that is constantly on the constantly getting destroyed, having to rebuild them. Numerous Jewish-only enclaves within the state itself. This is also the most favorable conditions for the Palestinians that exist under currently Israeli sovereignty as it stands. And even under the most favorable conditions, there's still plenty of discrimination that they face. And that's the reason why I place it in a different standard than other countries that happen to have more, Muslims or Christians. I don't think any ethno-state should exist, but England, for example, has the Church of England, and yet people can travel to England and become British citizens, as opposed to a Palestinian cannot become a full-fledged Israeli citizen under no circumstance. As a matter of fact,
well, that's why, for me, the ideal would be something like England, where obviously they have the Church of England. The Church of England gets to appoint people in the Lords. It's not completely neutral to religion. They have religious ceremonies for the King Charles. There's still a value of being
it's a symbolic one, though, right? Like it's not. It's still a secular state at the end of the day. Like I wouldn't consider England to be a religious state. I would say it's a secular state, and I'm not a fan of the country. And
they colonized my grandfather. They've got positives and negatives. But look, I would just say that to the extent it moves towards, if there's a way that people can recognize that the Jewish people, I do believe, have ties to that land, just like the Palestinians have ties to that land, just like many people have ties to that land. And I think that there was a need for Jewish self-determination and in post the Holocaust. But what it has become is a militarized state that is engaged in apartheid and occupation. And my vision is, how do you create a peace where, if you do have a Jewish component to a state, that you still have equal rights, and someone who's Palestinian can be as equally treated on land, on their prospects and political participation within the Green Line. And I think you can get to that if you can get a Palestinian state. But to get to a Palestinian state on the ground, you first have to get rid of all these illegal settlements and these outposts and the violence, and you really need to take a lot more constructive steps. But like I said, I'm open to other solutions. To me, it seems that working towards this will get to peace. But I hope other people in the Congress, the Senate, others will come and answer these questions, because we have a lot of people who, now are willing to have some of the platitudes, but are not willing to back it up with the concrete policy of no military sales and no aid, and calling it a genocide, apartheid.
Okay. I know I keep saying one last question.
You can keep going. I'm not.
Yeah. The other thing that I wanted to talk about is, a lot of people talk about a two-state solution, and oftentimes I think, especially in the anti-Zionist movement, this is seen as a way to just hand wave away a lot of the problems, because it seems impossible to accomplish for numerous reasons. One of them is obviously the 750,000 Jewish settlers that currently live in occupied East Jerusalem and also in the West Bank. And those numbers are obviously growing. There is a non-contiguous Palestinian state, which is precisely the reason why it seems virtually impossible after the last 3 decades of settler expansion. The other question I always have, and I rarely ever get to ask this to any sitting representatives, is how do you foresee a Palestinian standing army, and how do you get Israel to be on board with having a Palestinian army? Because that's the reality. States cannot exist without a standing military. States cannot exist without some kind of security cooperative agreements with other states in the region. Like, how would we get Israel to be? How would we get Israel to abide by the fine details of a two-state, one that would have its own sovereignty, its own territorial control, one that would have its own standing military that could potentially have security cooperative agreements with other nation states in the region?
Well, first of all, we deal with the settler issue, and that's why the first actions need to be to destroy the outposts, to demolish the illegal settlements. There will probably have to be some land swap. I read there was an intriguing proposal that you have 100,000 or 200,000 people who are Jewish settlers near Jerusalem, be still part of Israel, but then you have Palestinians in the what is currently in the Green Line, be part of a Palestinian state. So
Oh, uh-oh. We lost him. Damn it. We're just getting good. Hold on. Let me see if we can get Congressman Ro Khanna back on the call, potentially. I'm going to send him a text real quick. Wait, hold on. His phone might have died. Okay. We did. Oh, no. I think his phone died. No. All right. Well, Congressman Ro Khanna was very generous with his time on a Sunday, nonetheless. I mean, he was sitting outside of a church, sitting in his car. So that was very nice. And no, it's not a strategically deployed phone battery. I do believe it. He loves this kind of shit. Okay, he loves yapping about issues that you normally would not hear from the average American congressperson. So wait, he's back.
Hey, sorry about that. I just been having some connection issues. Can I finish my answer?
Yes, I would love that. I thought your phone died, but
it did die. But I managed to pull it back in. I don't know how it died. It was on the charger. Anyway, you'd think the Silicon Valley congressman would be better at it, but there you go. Look, so there's some land swaps, but ultimately, yes, you're right. Once we get to a Palestinian state, there needs to be security agreements and security cooperation, and Palestinians need to make sure that they would have to recognize, of course, Israel's existence at that point in any deal, because Israel want to know that they aren't going to get attacked at that point, and Israel would need to be fine with a security arrangement with a Palestinian state that was able to defend its citizens and its people, and that would have to be negotiated. So I still believe that that is the framework that holds out for peace. But here's the thing: whether you believe in that, whether you believe in other options, there are so many steps we can take to get to that point that would improve the lives of Palestinians. We can allow them to drill for water. We can make sure that Israel stops subsidizing settlements. We can destroy some of these outposts. We can demand the prosecution of the violent settlements. We can stop our aid. We can stop the military cells that are being used to kill them. I mean, and we work towards this, and then we keep other options on the table. But what I have said, I think, would dramatically, within a year, improve Palestinian lives if just Congress and American president did some of the basic things I'm talking about.
As far as parting words goes, Senator Lindsey Graham passed away earlier today at the age of 71. He was a massive advocate for not only the Iran war, but he was a massive advocate for Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu has eulogized him. What is your opinion on the news coverage of a congressperson's legacy? Do you feel like it should reflect the impact that he's had, both good and bad? Okay. That happened. Okay. I don't know what to say. That's crazy. Okay, that's Silicon Valley, by the way. Silicon Valley congressperson. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's funny. Okay, we lost them. Oh, that's funny. Okay, that's you know what? That's what we got. That's fine. Um it's all good. That's that's not tactical. That's not a tactical disconnect. All right, you know what? I'm gonna end the interview here. We've already exhausted Congressman Ro Khanna's phone battery and his time. Again, thank you to Ro Khanna for coming on. Oh, Jesus Christ. That was funny. I feel like I was appropriately critical at times, right? But also tried to arrive at some good answers. As you know, I'm charitable, but also sufficiently critical at times. I mean, Ro can take some punches. What is this? How would you answer that question on the settlers in the West Bank? Would you give them the option to leave or gain Palestinian citizenship? So this is my opinion as an American citizen, right? So it's like secondary to what the Palestinian people want. But I've made my opinion on this very clear. I think that there needs to be a truth and reconciliation. I'm a believer in the one state solution, specifically because of the way that the settlement expansion has existed. This is not to, reward the Israeli state for its crimes. It's more so just a pragmatic solution to what currently exists, which is a single state, a single solitary Jewish ethno-state that is sovereign and very violent and very brutal in its occupation and its apartheid and its genocide of the Palestinians. So my perspective on this is to offer full citizenship in a secular solitary state that recognizes the humanity and offers the exact same rights to every single Palestinian person and Israelis as well. There are numerous different solutions to this as well. Some people talk about a binational commitment. I'm fine with that. I'm even fine with like a two-state if it has a full-blown standing military for the Palestinians that can do their own security contracts, right? Like they can just have full-blown sovereignty. It's just something that I don't think Israel will ever be comfortable with. And yes, that does mean that the West Bank settlers would be a minority in the two-state solution in the current land that they occupy, and perhaps the best solution there would be some kind of land swap scheme, with a right to return, of course, as well. But that's the reason why I think a one-state solution with a right to return, with a Truth and Reconciliation Committee to take account not only of the recent genocide that Israel has committed, but also take accounting of 1948 and make a honest and just and equitable and permanent solution to this conflict. We have so much power over the Israeli government, we have so much power over the Israeli government that we could hold them to this standard.